In this video, I'm going to take this piece of granite, I'm going to put it through some rigorous testing. I'm going to scratch it, burn it, light it on fire, drop a sledgehammer on it, do everything I can to see just how durable this piece of granite countertop is so that we can compare to the other surfaces that I've tested. In past videos, I've done Dekton and I've done quartz. Check the video links for those in the description below. I don't want to do anything to this piece of granite, but I'm gonna. Let's get to scratching. We can see right here that this granite definitely chips if you're banging on it like I was with this screwdriver. Are you going to be doing this in your kitchen? Probably not. And the amount of scratching that occurs is pretty minimal. You know, depending on the color choice, depending on the pattern, would kind of determine how much of the scratches you're going to see. On this particular color, you don't really see it that much because of the pattern. You have to actually look for it. I'm pretty impressed with how durable this is. Again, except for beating it with the edge of the screwdriver, that definitely did have an effect. But even that, overall, it looks like some of the other reflective pieces in the countertop. If that were to happen to you, if something heavy dropped on this with a sharp edge and damaged it, you know, you could probably get away with it with a color like this because of the pattern. What we call granite and natural stone is not all the same, depending on what the mineral makeup is of the rock itself, where it's quarried in the world, and a number of different factors that I'm not going to get into in this particular video, but it's good to understand that as I do these tests, it's not indicative of every type of granite, just this particular one that I'm testing. As an overall countertop choice, it's good to see what granite can withstand. Let's see how this piece of granite withstands the blowtorch test. To give you an idea, with extended amount of heat, very high concentrated heat, what would happen to a granite surface. So very slight to nothing as far as discoloration goes and effect on the surface. If you remember or watch the quartz video, the quartz lit on fire eventually because of the resin that's involved in making it, where this is just rock. It came from the ground, it was made with intense pressure and heat anyway, and so basically we're just trying to light rock on fire. Let's light this black on fire, this part here, and see what happens there. Okay, there you go. It's already cooling down 300 degrees. Certain minerals in here are reacting differently to the heat. I'm just going to gloss over this with the torch to more or less simulate what would happen with a hot pot. So we're hitting about close to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. There's zero discoloration, the surface is warm. Putting something hot on this surface, you'd be fairly safe in doing so. Direct heat that's concentrated on something like this obviously has an effect, but that's an extreme case use and not something that you'd normally even ever come into contact with. There's no perfect countertop, let's keep that in mind, and all countertops are a little bit different. But what's the best choice for you as the consumer, and what's going to stand the best in your kitchen? That's what I want to know. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to drop this sledgehammer on this surface. Something to keep in mind as we're comparing the quartz and the Dekton test is that this surface is a little bit thicker. It's countertop thickness. The Dekton and the piece of quartz that we already tested were both like a sample thickness. And although you can get countertop like this, normally, at least in North America, for the past number of years, this is the thickness, 1.25 inches, that countertop would come. I'm trying to be fair, but can only do what I can do. Here we go, sledgehammer test from about 2 feet. Here we go. Okay, again noting that the thickness of this sample is different. I do realize that. But nothing happened to that, which is very promising because if you did drop something on your countertop, it's good to know what you can and cannot drop on it. What's heavier than this and more impactful in your kitchen? I don't know. So this is a good example and a good way to test these surfaces, in my opinion. Some granite is weaker than others, and some will crack, and there's generally not a warranty that covers that. And so this is a big problem for consumers because you want your countertop that you paid thousands of dollars for to be covered. Now, they do have stain guard warranties where they will apply a coating to protect it from anything staining it, and that usually is covered up to 15 years. But as far as any other type of damage, there's normally not a warranty, where quartz has a phenomenal warranty if anything were to happen to it. Nothing happened to this, and I dropped a big sledgehammer on it, so I don't know what that tells you. It tells me that I'm way more confident in granite right now than other materials. Gas. I was previously warned in other videos that pouring gasoline directly on this from the can is a very bad idea. Thank you for pointing that out, and I realize, yes, it's probably not the smartest thing, so I'm going to use a cup today. Woo! This is just a rag and just water, and everything comes right clean. See that? Gross. So overall, this reacted like I expected it would. The gas just burned off and we just wipe off the residue. There's no visible damage to the surface. So this is the sledgehammer test. On a stump, not a fair test, but I did it with everything else. I want to do it with this countertop to see how it compares. Again, this is thicker. It's just a different scenario, but I want to be fair and give it the same treatment. Here we go. Here's where it hit. That's the impact zone there. There's not even a hairline crack on that. One more time, but on an edge that's not supported by anything.
Oh!
Okay, finally some results with a sledgehammer. Beating a rock with a sledgehammer is bound to have some effect, but overall, the way this withstood the impact of that sledgehammer is remarkable. Yes, there is a chip here, and yes, we cracked the edge. Normally the edge is where you would find you'd have the most susceptible place for damage because it's not supported directly underneath. Even that isn't really so bad. I'm very, very impressed. We want to find out how stain resistant is granite. Now, the piece of granite that I'm using has a stain guard warranty on it from the manufacturer. It shouldn't stain at all. In fact, it's warranted not to for up to 15 years. Your particular piece of granite may need for you to seal it yourself, which is easy to do with a sealer. Spray it on, wipe it off. Okay, on this piece of granite, I have some beet juice, turmeric, professional hair dye, mustard, that's ketchup. Ketchup, mustard, and the green marker. Turmeric. Hair dye definitely left a stain, and the turmeric left a stain. This I'm going to have to use water to get off, and that's probably going to be the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. But at first glance, there is a staining. Now, I will note this, that sometimes granite just needs to dry, and once it dries, the color will come back. But we're going to find out. The only thing I can still see here is the dye, the hair dye. Everything else from the way I'm looking at it, and maybe it's hard to tell on screen, you can definitely see that stain from the hair dye. Which is good to know because you could be dyeing your hair over your countertop. It's very likely that you could be, and that is something to watch out for. Now, when this thing dries completely, that might change. It is the next day. I'm going to check this piece of granite out to see how dry it is and if there's any stains a day later. There is no sign of even the hair dye on there now. Good job, granite. How stain resistant is granite? Well, this piece at least is very stain resistant, and I would be satisfied if this was in my home and I stained it with one of those items. And this totally depends on the type of granite that you have. It is probably in your best interest, if you're pursuing granite, to get the sample that you like and actually do some testing yourself. Stain it with the things that you use in your kitchen regularly to see how it holds up. That's my best advice. Is granite better than quartz? Are apples better than oranges? Really, they're two different things. They're not the same thing. Yes, they're both countertop. They are totally different surfaces. One is completely natural, mined from the earth, and one is completely fabricated using natural materials. But to say that the two things are the same is just false. I would say some granite is better than some granite, and some quartz is better than some quartz, and that way you're really comparing apples to apples. With that being said, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you like my content. I really do appreciate it. Comment down below what your favorite countertop material is. I try to respond to as many comments as I can, and I thank you for commenting if you do.